Alright, I'm out here in front of Sykes Hall. I'm Malik and I'm with?
I'm Reed.
And we're here with?
Zion McElrath.
Do you happen to know the group of people that built Sykes Hall?
I have no idea.
Do you know the group of people who built Sykes Hall?
Was it a group of slaveries? Clemson started out as a plantation.
Actually, you're close. Sykes Hall was actually built by a group of convict laborers. They're basically people who were convicted for crimes in the state of South Carolina. They would go to prison, but the South Carolina prison system could rent out the people to Clemson, and they used them to put together this here building.
That's interesting.
It was a group of convict laborers, still African Americans, who were they convicted for a lot of them convicted for petty crimes and wound up in the state system for labor. So they were basically rented out to Clemson to help build Clemson.
Okay.
So do you know about the conditions that these people would have?
No, I have no idea.
These people weren't kept in the best conditions. A lot of them worked to exhaustion and even to the point of death, just because even slaves were treated better than them, in my opinion, just because slaves had resale value, so there was more incentive to take care of them. But now these convict laborers, they're just given back to the state. So a lot of the times the superintendent of convict laborers would give no care as to how exhausted his workers were. What do you think about that?
I think that's crazy. I think they should have been treated better, obviously.
What do you think about overall the whole Clemson's history behind the building of Clemson by convict laborers?
I think it's not right that there were convict laborers that built the buildings. Obviously, Clemson's a beautiful campus, but I would rather have it built by more useful means.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. In 1904, the first stone was laid down, and that's the group of people that built Sykes. Do you happen to know the conditions? Do you know the kind of conditions that these people were in?
I would take a guess and say poor.
Yeah,
but
it was pretty poor. A lot of them, there was only $6 a month invested into their transportation, food, lodging, and care.
Okay.
So you can imagine,
yeah.
it wasn't well at all. A lot of them were worked to death, and because a lot of slaves were of value because you could sell them, they had resale value.
Mm-hmm.
They were cared for more than these convict laborers, because these convict laborers had no kind of resale value.
Okay.
The workers would just run them to death. They had the superintendent of convict laborers, and because they couldn't sell them, they would just work them to death, and they really, even to the point of exhaustion, and it was really bad conditions. What do you think about that? How do you feel about the history of Clemson when you hear that?
I feel that more people need to know about that. I don't think many people actually do know about the history of Clemson, and including me, I didn't know it to that extent. And then also, it just shows you the South's past, really America's past, and how far we've come, but also how far we have left to go.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to our second part of the tour. I'm here standing in front of Tillman Hall, which was built in 1893. It was originally built as a chapel, as you can see with big clock tower and stuff, but now it's used as for different meetings and different lectures that Clemson wants to do and all. It was actually named after Benjamin Tillman, who was a South Carolina governor, and it was built by convict laborers.
All right. I'm Malik, and we're out here outside of Tillman Hall, and we're stopping to ask a couple students about what they know about Tillman Hall. So I'm here with
Katie.
and I'm going to ask her a few questions. So Katie, did you know that Tillman Hall was built by convict laborers?
No.
You had no idea? Well, I mean, that's okay, because a lot of students don't, and we're kind of trying to expose that history. Did you know that the conditions that these convict laborers were housed in? Do you have any idea? Well, it was kind of really harsh conditions. There was only $6 a month invested into their transportation, food, lodging, and care. So it was kind of, you can imagine that they didn't really in the best conditions. And we just wanted to ask you, what do you think about not only the conditions, but a little bit
I didn't even know that any of that even existed until just now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're gonna head off to our next stop, Hardin Hall.
Hello guys, I'm Will. I'm here with
Blake.
and we're standing in front of Hardin Hall, and we're gonna ask Blake a few questions and see what he knows about convict labor. So, do you know who built Hardin Hall?
No idea.
It was built by a group of convict laborers. If you don't know what that is, they were people who were put in jail for petty crimes. A lot of them, mainly the majority of them were African American, and they were rented out to Clemson University from the jail, and they were used to construct buildings like Hardin Hall. Did you know any of this about Clemson, perhaps? No. So yeah, most people don't. It's okay. A lot of the conditions they were in were not very good. 6 months a month was put into each convict laborer to take care of them. So like for transportation, like eating and housing and stuff. So what do you think about, like, did you know, like, these hard conditions? What do you feel about them?
Well, I mean, I guess it gave them something to do if they were going to be in jail anyway.
Yeah, that's one side of it. That's true. But like a lot of times they were like worked to death even out of exhaustion, and really like Clemson didn't care about them too much just because like slaves were treated better because they didn't have a resale value like and slaves did. So like once these convict laborers were used, like they didn't really need to be, they couldn't be sold, so they didn't care about their well-being. Does that like change your mind on anything about this?
Yeah, it sounds pretty bad now.
Yeah.
Since they couldn't get like other people to build it, they wanted to build it.
And do you think like Clemson is doing something, or it obviously is doing something about it, but like do you think this should be more well known on Clemson's campus?
I think it should be now with all the race and all everything getting equality now. I think it should be.
Alright, well thank you for your time.
No problem.
Oh, off to Fort Hill. You're back with Malik, and we're at our last stop of the Convict Laborer Tour. We're outside of the Trustee House, right here on top of Fort Hill. It was established in 1894, and it was a building that housed faculty. It housed the first chemistry department chair, Mark B. Hardin, and currently it now houses public affairs and marketing and communications. Back here with Malik, and I'm outside of the Trustee House with
Rick.
And I'm going to ask Rick a couple questions about what he knows about the history of the Trustee House. So, do you happen to know the group of people that built the Trustee House?
I have absolutely no idea anything about the Trustee House.
So, the Trustee House was built by a group of convict laborers. Do you know what convict laborers are?
I do know convict laborers.
Tell me a little bit what you know about convict laborers.
Mostly I know that they were a group of people. I think many of them were African Americans who built like Clemson when it was like first being like developed. Right. As much as I know.
More than a lot of students, and that's important because we want to make sure we personally feel like Clemson isn't doing enough to educate its students about like its history as a whole, like convict laborers, it as a plantation, and general things about Clemson. Do you know the kind of conditions like that these convicts were kept in?
I think I believe like that they used to live in the shoeboxes over there.
Right.
Is that correct? Yeah, that's about. I know that they didn't have like the best living conditions.
It wasn't good living conditions at all. A lot of them were worked to exhaustion. They didn't have good housing. There was a total of like $6 invested into convict laborers, and that's for transportation, food, lodging. And $6 isn't a lot for anything, let alone all of those things for the essential things those people need. So you can imagine that they weren't kept in the best conditions.
Yes.
How do you feel about like Clemson being built by convict laborers as a whole? Like, what do you think about that? And how do you feel? What do you think Clemson should do to educate more of its students about its history?
Well, I definitely think it's something that you should know if you go to this campus. Like, you need to know like not just like why these buildings are important, but like the people who basically like dedicated their lives giving us these buildings that we use for like our educational purpose. So I definitely think like Clemson, like maybe on their website or even just like there's students, like, I know they do like a lot of like the tours around here, and I see people like mentioning all this stuff. I probably like good thing to mention, like, hey, this building was built by such and such, and these are the people that like did this and that to like make them so what it is.
Right. That's fair assessment. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.